All right, folks, we are back with Erika Brown. She is the publisher and editor of the Manchester Cricket to tell us about all things happening by the sea this week. How you doing, Erika?
Hey Heather, hey Corey, how are you guys?
Good.
Great. Okay, you have a few fun stories lined up for us. But let's start off with the very special Memorial Day observances.
Yeah, we had that this week, and we celebrated all over Cape Ann. As a matter of fact, 1623 did a pre-recorded virtual, really quite beautiful ceremony that I think a lot of people enjoyed and participated in. Manchester, Memorial Day is a huge thing. On a normal year, it is a full program that starts, I think, at 9 o'clock in the morning and finishes at about 12:30. And by that, I mean you go. It's a early morning observance and ceremony at the American Legion Hall, which is right on the Inner Harbor, right behind Town Hall. And they have, a gun salute. They have a harborside wreath thing. I mean, it's very involved. And then that kicks off a 3-mile parade. I call it the uniform parade because it has, servicemen. It does also have the Board of Selectmen and all, but it also has public safety officials, the Boy Scouts, the high school band. I mean, it's a large parade that snakes around town for 3.5 miles and ends, which is where most people meet up with it, at Rosedale Cemetery downtown. It's an old cemetery, and they have a beautiful service with religious figures, and they read Flanders Field, which is sort of the common Memorial Day, and everybody goes to it. It's a real thing in Manchester. So with that as a backdrop, Manchester was the only town in Cape Ann to really go for it and have an in-person ceremony. I think, Rockport didn't do it, right? And I don't believe Gloucester had one.
Right.
And it didn't go off without some behind the scenes kind of static, high level static. I've heard that sort of the public safety officials kind of spoke up and said, maybe we shouldn't do this. But they did it anyway. And part of the process, though, part of the actual event, which kicked off at 10 o'clock in the morning, it was intimate. It was only at the American Legion Hall. It involved only the Veterans Services. It was a ceremony, and it did have that kind of harbor wreath in the water component to it. No Flanders Field, no parade, no nothing. But they made part of the kickoff. They said the ceremony would start at 10. Instead, it started more like 10:30. And I think this was by design. Part of the ceremony was people got to watch the rehearsal. And the rehearsal included them making sure that they measured off to be safe. And I think that was on purpose. And if it wasn't, it should have been, because it was a really good idea. So they had the service. It was well attended, even though, it was discouraged, but it was well attended. Because it was on a parking lot, people naturally, they wore masks, and people naturally scattered. It was really interesting. They scattered in the parking lot among the cars. So they were kind of, 6 feet apart. They were clustered in families and in natural groups, but mostly they were spread out. There were seats set up at the Masonic Hall next door, which was also spaced, and we had some people there. And then also people came in by boats and watched from the water, which was pretty, to be honest with you, to watch them watch us. And then also the homes on the Inner Harbor with their little porches on the outside, people were kind of smattered, collared around the Inner Harbor. In the end, if you went into it, you would say, oh, I'm not sure that's a good idea. But when you were in it, it felt good. It felt good to be part of a ceremony that you knew was really important to the town. And it was nice to see people just naturally doing the right thing, the respectful thing for public safety, and then the respectful thing for fallen soldiers. So that's how it went. It was really nice.
Very nice.
Well, that's a good story. Yeah, that's heartwarming all the way around.
Yeah. And who knows, by the way, if that was wise. So it's really weird. We're in that funky period where you've got to take risks to get back to life, because that was a risk, but it was a highly calculated one. It was one where we were very prepped. And even in the end, who knows, we'll know in 2 or 3 weeks if that was an error or not, and we shouldn't have done it. And I hate to say it that way, but it's kind of true. We'll know.
Well, Erika, speaking of public gatherings and ceremonies, you have some info on July 4th?
Yeah, July 4th, Monday night's BOS meeting, the Board of Selectmen, kind of finalized that. I think we talked about this last week, that the 4th of July committee was going to make its formal recommendations, but the Board of Selectmen likes to know that they're making the decision, right? So they accepted the recommendations. What they're going to do is they're going to, one, put off the 4th of July parade until September the 4th. So I'm not sure if that's being mimicked around Cape Ann. Do you know anything? Does anybody?
No,
No?
I know Gloucester ceremonies have been pushed, but I don't think they've been rescheduled yet.
Well, this is a rescheduling, and yet it's not, because they say it's the September 4th tentatively. You know what I mean? So I have a feeling we'll see a lot of that. But what they will be doing is they will have something on the 4th of July. And it's really interesting. I don't think that they did this because of this, but my thinking, it's very clever. Here in Manchester, Alley's Beach Street Cafe, which is a restaurant downtown, really popular. For Halloween, they did something super creative. I'd never heard of it before. They actually dressed the restaurant up in costume. They became a Chinese restaurant for one night. And they did all the redesign inside. So you walked in and suddenly you were in a Chinese restaurant. And it was very, like, I don't know, it was very avant-garde to me. I guess my definition of avant-garde is pretty low, but you know, I thought it was so clever to take a restaurant and make the restaurant dress up for Halloween, right? Well, it's the same kind of thinking for 4th of July. Instead of having a parade with floats that are in a parade and you come and watch them, what they're going to do is they're asking, and I'm not sure if other towns are doing it, but you can enter your house as a float in the parade, right? They don't say it that way, but that's basically what it is.
So you drive through. The participants
Exactly.
are actually the ones who are moving.
And they have, exactly. So they have these rules of engagement, which I think are very fair. Number one, you can't have any ringers. Now, they don't say it that way, but you can't have ringers. You can't have outside help. It's got to be like the family dressing up the house. And it also has to be, I believe, the house itself. You can't, make you can't bring in the whole lawn into it. You know what I mean? Like, so you have to actually have, it has to be the house.
No hedges.
Yeah. And so the people doing the moving are the judges.
Yeah.
So they will drive by your house. And I hope what they do is publicize a map. You know what I mean? Like map of the stars in LA.
Yeah.
Do a map of the floats so that other people can enjoy it and drive by and see the creativity of the community. But that's what they're going to do, and they're going to have prizes. Well, in terms of first prize, second prize, I don't know if there's going to be a material prize, but that's how they're going to do it, and I think that's creative, and we'll see how it goes. I think it's a great idea. One other side thing that I just thought was funny is it can't. You know how in some towns they refer to the long driveway people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The long driveway people. No long driveway people are allowed to enter because it's inconvenient, but it's also kind of funny to me.
Yeah. Be a lot of people turning around. Be a horror show.
No long driveway people are allowed because for the 4th of July committee, they're not our kind, dear. NOKD.
Well, yeah. The long driveway people were always best they would have the haunted mansion tours for Halloween. I remember doing those in Manchester when I was a kid. It was really cool.
That must be spectacular. I've never done that, and I bet it's fantastic, actually.
Yeah. I think it's an awesome idea, that parade idea.
I think
it is.
Do we have any sense of the source of that idea? Because it is a really good one.
It's Cheryl Marshall, and I think of the 4th of July committee as Cheryl Marshall, who is the head of the Parks and Recreation Committee in Manchester, but it really is representative of a lot of other people with a lot of experience and who deserve a lot of credit. But I think, she's the lead person, and she's the one who delivered the recommendations to the Board of Selectmen.
That's great.
Yeah.
No long driveway people.
Yeah.
So, Erika, what is going on at Tug Point?
I was just going to bring that up. You beat me. That's absolutely true. That is the other big news, and I love that you know about it. Tug Point. We have a headline in this story called "Tug Point Dock is Brewing," and it's because it's a brewing controversy, but it's a controversy that, it's a controversy that it's the way it is. There's no getting around it. Like sometimes controversies are controversies because somehow you can impact or affect the change if you rustle up enough complaints. That's not the case here. It's the way it is. And it's a very interesting story. People who actually get to their docks, to their moorings, have certain docks that they can get to because of the shape of our inner harbor, So you have Reed Park, which is right downtown by Alley's Beach Street Cafe. Then you also have the town dock in Masconomo. You have certain launches and docks and dinghy docks, permanent dinghy docks to get to your mooring. The biggest one is at Tug Point. And it's the rotunda's there. It's really beautiful. It's very iconic. About half of the town's moorings, which is about 300 moorings. So we're talking about a lot of moorings. All of those mooring holders, and remember, we're in the middle of COVID where getting out on the water is actually a good thing, right? So they learned this week because Bion Pike, the harbor master, kind of basically is trying to get ahead of it along with the Harbor Advisory Committee. They're going to be greeted with a new haul out system to get to their moorings, right? And here's what it is. Imagine it's like a clothesline. It's a closed loop. And this is probably tried and true, I think, in New England, in waters, by the way. This is not an unknown solution. It's a clothesline with a single dinghy where you wheel yourself over to a dock, an interim dock, where you get your dinghy, and then you can go to your thing. But you can only do it one at a time. One at a time. It's one dinghy. And then when you're done, you got to keep wheeling it and return it for the next person, right? So, and here's the controversy. The controversy is, why do we need to do this year? Why are they greeting this? Okay, well, last year there was some really bad windstorms and it knocked out sort of the access ramp from the rotunda. Basically, that's how you get out. The rotunda dock or walkway, which is over the water. Then you exit and go on a down ramp down to the dinghy dock. Mm-hmm. That was blown out, and so were the docks because of some high winds last October. Well, come to find out, when we went to repair it, Bion Pike goes to the authorities to get a permit to, get it done, lickety split. And he learns that the last time that the town applied properly for work at the rotunda was 1896.
So nothing's been done to that rotunda and that dock since 1896?
There's the problem. No, there's been okay. We had a little something called the blizzard of 1978.
Yeah,
I have pictures in the archive of the paper, by the way, of the entire rotunda was wiped out and completely rebuilt. Then again, the rotunda was completely renovated, like really beautifully renovated in the year 2000, 2010, and 2011. And those are just the ones that we could easily recall. So I asked Bion Pike about it. I said, how did that happen? I mean, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has to approve all this. First Nations, by the way, First Nations has to weigh in. The DEP, the state DEP, like there's some big state regulators that have to weigh in on this. And I said, what's up? And he was like, I got hired in 2012. So listen, I chalk this up to the idea. I guess if you look at every dock in Cape Ann like this, mm-hmm. There's probably a similar dynamic. There was probably a way people did things back in the day and, Yeah. But guess what? We are able to get our permit in about a year.
Oh, man.
A year. So Bion's anticipating a lot of pushback. Let's call it pushback, because it's really going to be inconvenient. So what he's done is, if you have a motorized dinghy, and apparently a lot of people do, I didn't realize that, he's going to just relocate them over to Reed Park. That's going to take away a big chunk of them, and the rest of them. And then also I know that there is a launch service, a private launch service that, and people will probably take advantage of something like that. My guess is deals will be done.
Yeah, United Dinghies, something like that.
So there you go.
The permitting process is to replace these moorings that were rotted. Is that what did you meant?
No, to renovate the dock, to rebuild the dock. And there's two parts of the dock. There's the pilings underneath, and apparently those have maybe a 50-year life, more actually from my observation. But that's but then on top of it is the docks, and the dock system, because it's in the water, and that includes actually the ramp, the big walkway to get out to the rotunda, which is beautiful, and hundreds of people can be on it. That's part of that system. And I didn't realize how many people had to weigh in. What was the process. It's federal, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, heavy state, and the state includes engineers from, Department of Environmental Protection, like the water. I mean, there's a lot of people involved. One thing that surprised me was the tribes, the First Nation status. They are also part of this process, which I found to be kind of fascinating. I wanted to get into it, and we probably will. My last line in this article was, file this under developing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, great stuff as always, Erika. When we have time sometime, Heather and I will tell you the story about when we got chased out of Tux Point.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Actually.
And it's not COVID related, right?
Oh, no, just pre-COVID. Yeah.
Got it on tape too, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, that narrows it down a little. That takes away any partying.
We'll stow that away for a little bit. Well, that'll come out someday, though. That'll be a fun one.
I look forward to that.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a great weekend. We look forward to doing this with you all over again next week, Erika.
Bye, guys. Good to see you.